Some of the most famous gemstones in the world may no longer be the smartest ones to buy, because in today's market, popularity doesn't always mean rarity, and beauty doesn't always mean demand. While certain gemstones continue to dominate jewelry stores and advertisements, others are quietly losing the qualities that once made them desirable. At the same time, a few overlooked stones are attracting growing attention from collectors for very different reasons. In this countdown, you'll discover 7 gemstones that may not deserve their reputation anymore, and 3 that might deserve far more. And the gemstone at number 1 proves that the rarest opportunities are often the ones most people never see coming. Let's begin with a stone that spent centuries being mistaken for ruby. Number 10. Spinel, worth buying. Long before most collectors began paying attention to spinel, this gemstone was already sitting in some of the world's most famous treasure collections. That may sound surprising today, but for centuries, spinel lived in the shadow of ruby. In fact, several legendary red gems once believed to be rubies were later identified as spinels. The stones had been admired, protected, and displayed by royalty for generations before anyone realized they belonged to an entirely different gemstone family. That unusual history reveals something important about today's market. Many gemstones become popular because marketing campaigns convince buyers they are valuable. Spinel followed the opposite path. It spent much of modern jewelry history being overlooked despite possessing many of the qualities collectors actively seek: exceptional color, strong durability, impressive brilliance, and genuine rarity in fine quality specimens. This is where spinel begins to separate itself from many gemstones that dominate jewelry store displays. While some stones rely heavily on brand recognition, spinel's appeal comes from discovery. Collectors who encounter a vivid red, cobalt blue, hot pink, or lavender spinel often find themselves asking the same question: why isn't this gemstone discussed more often? The answer may be one of the strongest reasons it appears on the worth-buying side of this countdown. Markets are not always efficient. Sometimes they overvalue what is heavily promoted. Other times they underestimate what quietly exists outside the spotlight. Fine, natural spinel has spent decades in that second category. As buyers become more educated about rarity, treatment issues, and long-term desirability, attention has slowly shifted toward gemstones with authentic scarcity and strong gemological credentials. That does not mean every spinel is destined to become highly sought after. Quality still matters. Color, clarity, cutting, origin, and overall visual impact remain critical factors. However, among serious collectors, spinel is increasingly viewed as a gemstone with room for greater appreciation rather than a stone that has already exhausted its story. More importantly, spinel teaches a lesson that applies to the entire gemstone market. The most heavily advertised stone is not always the smartest purchase, and the gemstones creating the biggest opportunities are often the ones that spent years hidden in plain sight. Unfortunately, the next gemstone on this list represents the exact opposite situation, a stone whose popularity became so widespread that its future now looks far less certain. Number 9. Commercial diamond. Avoid. Few gemstones have shaped public perception of value more successfully than the diamond. For generations, diamonds became the default symbol of luxury, commitment, and permanence. Jewelry stores displayed them as the ultimate choice. Advertising campaigns reinforced their prestige. Entire industries were built around the idea that diamonds represented rarity and lasting worth. Yet one of the most important questions in today's gemstone market is no longer whether diamonds are beautiful. It is whether commercial-grade diamonds still deserve the assumptions many buyers attach to them. The challenge is not the existence of diamonds themselves. Exceptional natural diamonds with outstanding rarity, historical significance, unusual colors, or extraordinary characteristics continue to attract strong collector interest. The concern lies primarily within the vast commercial segment of the market, the category where most consumers make their purchases. For decades, scarcity was one of the strongest arguments supporting diamond value. That argument has become increasingly complicated. Modern buyers now have access to more information than ever before. They can compare prices instantly, research market trends, and understand how different grades perform over time. At the same time, alternative options have expanded dramatically. Consumers who once had very few choices now face an entirely different landscape. As a result, many commercial diamonds no longer enjoy the unquestioned position they held in previous generations. This creates an important distinction that many buyers overlook. A gemstone can be famous without being the strongest purchase. A gemstone can be expensive without being difficult to replace. And a gemstone can dominate advertising while still facing pressure from changing consumer behavior. That does not mean commercial diamonds suddenly have no value. Millions of people will continue to buy and enjoy them. However, when viewed strictly through the lens of long-term desirability, uniqueness, and collector-driven demand, commercial diamonds no longer appear as automatic winners simply because they carry the world's most recognizable gemstone name. For buyers seeking genuine rarity, the lesson is clear. Reputation should never be confused with scarcity, because once a market becomes heavily dependent on perception, even small shifts in consumer behavior can have surprisingly large consequences. And the next gemstone reveals a completely different problem, not a question of perception, but a question of how much of the stone's beauty remains truly natural by the time it reaches the customer. Number 8. Commercial emerald. Avoid. At first glance, emerald seems like the easiest gemstone to love. Its rich green color has captivated civilizations for thousands of years. Ancient rulers treasured it. Collectors pursued it. Luxury brands built entire jewelry collections around it. Even today, emerald remains one of the most recognizable gemstones on Earth. But hidden beneath that famous green surface is a reality many buyers never fully understand. Unlike several other popular gemstones, emeralds are notoriously prone to fractures and internal features formed during their geological journey. These characteristics are so common that finding an emerald with exceptional clarity is extraordinarily difficult. As a result, treatment has become deeply woven into the commercial emerald market. For many consumers, that fact comes as a surprise. A significant percentage of commercial emeralds receive some form of clarity enhancement before reaching jewelry stores. Oils, resins, and other filling methods are often used to improve appearance by reducing the visibility of fractures. In many cases, these treatments are accepted industry practices when properly disclosed. The issue is not necessarily that treatment exists. The issue is that many buyers assume they are purchasing rarity when they may actually be purchasing appearance. That distinction becomes increasingly important in a market where long-term desirability depends heavily on quality, transparency, and confidence. When comparing gemstones as potential long-term purchases, uncertainty can become a weakness. Buyers must consider not only color and beauty, but also treatment stability, future maintenance, disclosure standards, and how the broader market perceives enhanced stones over time. This does not mean emeralds lack value. Exceptional natural emeralds with outstanding color, minimal enhancement, strong provenance, and collector-grade quality continue to command remarkable attention. Those stones occupy an entirely different category. The concern lies within the commercial segment where most buyers shop. In that space, beauty can sometimes mask complexity. A gemstone that appears impressive under display lighting may carry far more questions beneath the surface than many consumers realize. For anyone trying to buy intelligently rather than emotionally, commercial emeralds offer an important reminder. Visual appeal alone should never be mistaken for lasting value. And while emerald's challenge revolves around treatment and transparency, the next gemstone faces a completely different problem. Its weakness is not hidden inside the stone. Its weakness comes from the fact that there may simply be too much of it. Number 7. Blue topaz. Avoid. Walk into almost any jewelry store, browse enough online gemstone listings, or visit a major gem show, and one blue gemstone appears again and again. Blue topaz is everywhere. That widespread visibility may sound like a strength. After all, consumers often assume popularity signals demand, and demand signals value. Yet the gemstone market does not always work that way. In many cases, abundance can become the very thing that limits long-term desirability. Blue topaz offers a fascinating example of this principle. Its appeal is easy to understand. The color is attractive, the gemstone is durable enough for everyday jewelry. Large stones are readily available. Compared with many premium gems, prices remain relatively accessible. For buyers looking for a beautiful blue gemstone without spending a fortune, blue topaz often appears to be an obvious choice, and that is exactly where the problem begins. One of the strongest drivers of gemstone value is scarcity. Collectors tend to pursue objects that are difficult to find, difficult to replace, or difficult to obtain in significant quantities. Blue topaz struggles in all three categories. Large quantities enter the market every year. Matching stones can often be sourced without major difficulty. Large, calibrated sizes remain widely available. From a collector's perspective, there is little urgency. Without urgency, demand tends to behave differently. Instead of buyers competing to secure rare opportunities, the market often operates under the assumption that another similar stone will always be available tomorrow. That mindset reduces one of the most powerful forces that drives long-term appreciation. None of this means blue topaz is a bad gemstone. Far from it. For someone seeking beauty, affordability, and wearability, blue topaz can be an excellent purchase. But this countdown is examining a different question entirely. Which gemstones still offer compelling reasons to buy from a rarity and desirability perspective? In that conversation, blue topaz faces a difficult challenge. A gemstone can be attractive. A gemstone can be popular. A gemstone can even be loved by millions. Yet if the market never fears running out of it, the path towards stronger collector demand becomes much harder to create. Ironically, the next gemstone demonstrates that abundance is not always the biggest threat. Sometimes a gemstone begins losing relevance because buyers simply find more interesting alternatives. Number 6. White topaz. Avoid. History is filled with gemstones that lost value not because they became worse, but because something more desirable came along. White topaz may be one of the clearest examples. On paper, it possesses several qualities buyers should appreciate. It is a genuine gemstone. It offers good transparency. It can be cut into attractive shapes. It is affordable, widely available, and capable of producing jewelry that appears elegant from a distance. Years ago, those advantages helped white topaz occupy an important place in the jewelry market. Today, the situation looks very different. The challenge facing white topaz has little to do with its appearance and everything to do with competition. Modern consumers have more options than ever before. Jewelry buyers can choose from a growing range of colorless gemstones that offer stronger brilliance, greater durability, more aggressive marketing support, or simply a more desirable reputation. In such an environment, remaining relevant becomes increasingly difficult. This creates a problem that many buyers fail to recognize. A gemstone does not need to disappear from the market to lose momentum. It only needs to become less exciting than the alternatives surrounding it. That gradual shift can be surprisingly powerful. When retailers promote other options more heavily, when consumer attention moves elsewhere, and when fewer collectors actively pursue a gemstone, demand can slowly weaken without attracting much notice. The gemstone remains available, but enthusiasm begins to fade. For buyers focused purely on appearance, that may not matter. For buyers thinking about long-term desirability, it matters a great deal. One of the strongest signals in any collectible market is sustained interest. Not temporary interest, not promotional interest. Genuine interest that survives changing trends and continues attracting attention year after year. White topaz struggles to generate that kind of excitement. The stone still serves a purpose in jewelry. It still offers beauty at an accessible price point. But from a market perspective, it increasingly finds itself competing for attention rather than commanding it. That distinction is exactly why it appears on the avoid side of this countdown. Because when demand begins drifting elsewhere, even a perfectly respectable gemstone can become easy to overlook. And the next gemstone reveals an even more deceptive situation. Unlike white topaz, it remains extremely popular. The problem is that popularity and opportunity are not always the same thing. Number 5. Citrine. Avoid. Few gemstones have benefited more from being affordable, attractive, and widely available than citrine. Its warm golden color instantly appeals to many buyers. Jewelry retailers appreciate its accessibility, consumers appreciate the price, and because larger stones can often be purchased without extraordinary expense, citrine has become one of the most common entry points into gemstone collecting. At first glance, that sounds like a success story. But success in the jewelry market is not always the same as strength in the collector market. That distinction explains why citrine appears on the avoid side of this countdown. One of the most persistent misconceptions in the gemstone world is the belief that popularity automatically creates opportunity. In reality, some gemstones become popular precisely because they are abundant, easy to source, and relatively inexpensive to replace. Citrine falls into that category. The stone's appeal is genuine. Its golden tones can be beautiful. Certain specimens display remarkable clarity. Fine cutting can create impressive brilliance. Yet despite these qualities, citrine rarely generates the urgency that drives long-term collector demand. The reason is simple. Collectors tend to chase scarcity. When buyers believe another similar stone can easily be found tomorrow, the pressure to acquire it today disappears. Without that pressure, competition remains limited. Without competition, sustained demand becomes harder to build. This is where many consumers confuse value with affordability. A gemstone can offer excellent value as a purchase while offering limited potential as a collectible. Those are not the same thing. Citrine remains an enjoyable gemstone for jewelry lovers who appreciate color, wearability, and accessibility. However, when evaluated through the lens of rarity, market positioning, and collector enthusiasm, it faces a challenge shared by several stones already mentioned in this countdown. There is simply too much available supply relative to demand. As a result, citrine often functions more as a decorative gemstone than a sought-after collectible asset. That reality does not make citrine bad. It simply makes its long-term market story less compelling than many buyers assume. And that creates an interesting contrast with the next gemstone. Because while citrine struggles with abundance, the stone at number 4 has spent years quietly attracting attention for the exact opposite reason. Most buyers have never heard of it, yet many experts believe that may be precisely what makes it worth watching. Number 4. Tsavorite, worth buying. Some of the most interesting opportunities in the gemstone market share one unusual characteristic. Most people have never heard of them. Tsavorite is a perfect example. Mention emerald and almost everyone immediately recognizes the name. Mention tsavorite, and many jewelry buyers draw a blank. Yet from a gemological perspective, that lack of recognition may be one of the most fascinating aspects of the stone. Discovered in East Africa during the 20th century, tsavorite belongs to the garnet family and is celebrated for its vibrant green color. Under the right conditions, fine specimens display a level of brightness and liveliness that often surprises people seeing the gemstone for the first time. What makes tsavorite particularly intriguing is not simply its beauty, it is the comparison it invites. For decades, emerald has dominated the conversation whenever green gemstones are discussed. Tsavorite, meanwhile, has quietly developed a reputation among collectors for offering a different combination of strengths. Unlike many commercial emeralds, tsavorite typically does not depend on routine clarity enhancement treatments to achieve its appearance. That fact alone attracts attention from buyers who increasingly value transparency and natural characteristics. The stone also benefits from something that cannot be manufactured through advertising. Limited supply. High-quality tsavorite is not flooding jewelry stores. It is not appearing in endless quantities across every segment of the market. Finding exceptional material often requires far more effort than many consumers realize. That scarcity creates a different psychological dynamic. When buyers encounter a remarkable tsavorite, there is often a sense that another identical opportunity may not appear immediately. In collectible markets, that perception matters. Demand does not need to be massive. It only needs to exceed the availability of truly desirable material. That is one reason tsavorite continues attracting attention from knowledgeable buyers looking beyond the most heavily marketed gemstone categories. None of this guarantees future appreciation. No responsible evaluation of gemstones should make promises about future value. However, compared with many stones on the avoid side of this countdown, tsavorite possesses several qualities that collectors consistently respect: natural beauty, relative scarcity, strong color, and a market story that still feels underdeveloped. In other words, it remains a gemstone that many buyers are still discovering. Unfortunately, the next stone demonstrates that discovery alone is not enough, because even a beautiful gemstone can struggle when admiration fails to translate into sustained collector demand. Number 3. Peridot. Avoid. Bright green gemstones often attract attention immediately. Peridot has been doing exactly that for thousands of years. Formed deep within the Earth's mantle and occasionally delivered to the surface through volcanic activity, peridot possesses a geological story that is genuinely fascinating. Its distinctive lime green glow is instantly recognizable, and unlike many gemstones that require dramatic marketing campaigns to stand out, peridot often catches the eye on appearance alone. That should be a recipe for strong long-term demand. Yet the market tells a different story. Peridot illustrates one of the most important lessons in gemstone collecting. Admiration and pursuit are not the same thing. Many buyers admire peridot, far fewer actively seek it. The difference may seem subtle, but it has significant implications for long-term desirability. When collectors pursue a gemstone, they spend time searching for it, competing for exceptional examples, discussing notable specimens, and tracking availability. That behavior creates energy within a market. It generates urgency. It creates the feeling that acquiring an outstanding stone matters. Peridot rarely benefits from that dynamic to the same degree as many stronger collector gemstones. The stone remains appreciated, but appreciation alone does not necessarily translate into sustained demand. Part of the challenge comes from positioning. Peridot occupies an unusual space within the gemstone world. It is neither exceptionally rare nor exceptionally common. It is attractive but rarely viewed as aspirational. It has historical significance, yet it often struggles to dominate conversations in the way emeralds, sapphires, rubies, or certain collector-focused gemstones do. As a result, peridot frequently finds itself admired from a distance rather than actively pursued. That distinction becomes increasingly important when evaluating whether a gemstone belongs on the worth-buying side of this countdown. Beautiful color is valuable. Interesting geology is valuable. Historical significance is valuable. But if those qualities fail to generate consistent collector enthusiasm, market momentum can remain limited. This does not make peridot a poor jewelry gemstone. Many pieces featuring fine peridot are stunning. The concern is simply that the stone's market story often appears stronger than its actual collector demand. And that brings the countdown to a particularly revealing example. Because the next gemstone was once celebrated as one of the jewelry industry's fastest rising stars. Today, however, its biggest challenge may be the very trend that helped make it famous in the first place. Number 2. Morganite. Avoid. Not every gemstone rises because of rarity. Sometimes a gemstone rises because it arrives at exactly the right moment. For a period of time, morganite seemed unstoppable. Its soft pink color aligned perfectly with changing jewelry trends. Social media embraced it. Designers incorporated it into engagement rings. Retailers promoted it as a fresh alternative to more traditional choices. Consumers looking for something romantic, elegant, and different found morganite increasingly difficult to ignore. The momentum was real. The question is whether that momentum was ever built on foundations strong enough to last. That question matters because trends can create a powerful illusion inside collectible markets. When demand grows quickly, buyers often assume long-term desirability is growing as well. The two concepts may look similar on the surface, but they are not the same thing. A trend creates attention. A collector market creates staying power. Morganite benefited enormously from attention, yet attention can be surprisingly fragile. When consumer preferences begin shifting, trend-driven gemstones often face a difficult challenge. The excitement that once attracted buyers may gradually move towards something newer, different, or more fashionable. What was once viewed as unique can suddenly begin to feel familiar. This is where morganite struggles compared with stronger collector-oriented gemstones. The stone is attractive. Fine examples can display beautiful peach-pink tones. Jewelry featuring morganite can be elegant and visually striking. None of those qualities are in dispute. The concern lies elsewhere. Collector demand has historically been driven by factors such as rarity, historical significance, exceptional scarcity, or sustained multi-generational fascination. Morganite's rise was fueled more heavily by contemporary consumer taste than by those deeper forces. That distinction becomes increasingly important as trends evolve. A gemstone supported primarily by fashion must continuously remain fashionable. A gemstone supported by rarity does not face the same burden. For buyers focused on enjoyment, morganite may still offer plenty to appreciate. For buyers searching for gemstones with stronger long-term collector narratives, the story becomes far less convincing, and that may be the most valuable lesson in this entire countdown. Popularity can arrive quickly. Popularity can also leave quickly, which brings the countdown to the final position. Because the gemstone at number 1 follows a completely different path. It was never built on a trend. It was built on something far harder to manufacture. Genuine rarity, limited supply, and a level of demand that continues to attract serious attention from collectors around the world. Number 1. Paraiba tourmaline, worth buying. Every so often, the gemstone world encounters a discovery so extraordinary that it changes the conversation permanently. Paraiba tourmaline is one of those rare exceptions. When the first specimens emerged from Brazil in the late 20th century, even experienced gem dealers struggled to believe what they were seeing. The colors appeared almost unreal. Electric blues, neon greens, and vivid turquoise tones, unlike anything commonly associated with traditional gemstones. The visual impact was immediate, but appearance alone is not what earned Paraiba the number 1 position on this list. The real story begins beneath the surface. Throughout this countdown, several gemstones face the same challenge: abundant supply, fading trends, treatment concerns, or declining collector urgency. Paraiba tourmaline stands apart because it benefits from the opposite conditions. Truly fine material is exceptionally difficult to find. Production has always been limited. High-quality stones are scarce. Exceptional examples become even rarer as size, color intensity, and clarity improve. In gemstone markets, those characteristics matter because scarcity is one of the few advantages that cannot be manufactured through advertising. A marketing campaign can increase awareness. It cannot create genuine rarity. That distinction explains why Paraiba continues attracting attention from collectors, dealers, and high-end buyers around the world. The stone's appeal extends beyond beauty. It possesses a compelling discovery story, identifiable visual characteristics, limited availability, and a reputation built largely on scarcity rather than fashion. These factors combine to create something many gemstones struggle to achieve: sustained collector interest that does not depend on short-term trends. Of course, not every Paraiba tourmaline is automatically a wise purchase. Quality remains critical. Color saturation, origin, clarity, cutting, and overall rarity continue to separate ordinary examples from truly exceptional ones. Yet among modern gemstones, few combine desirability and scarcity as effectively. And that leads to the most important lesson from this entire countdown. The strongest gemstone opportunities are not always the most famous. They are not always the most advertised, and they are rarely the easiest to find. Sometimes the market's greatest rewards belong to the stones supported by genuine rarity rather than perception. Because in the end, beauty may attract attention, but rarity is what keeps collectors searching long after everyone else has moved on. The biggest lesson from today's countdown is simple. The most famous gemstone isn't always the smartest one to buy. As you've seen, beauty, popularity, and marketing can attract attention, but rarity, demand, and collector interest are often what matter most over time. Some of the best opportunities in the gemstone world aren't the stones everyone is talking about, they're the ones most people overlook. Which gemstone surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating stories from the world of gemstones.